Yeah, so another thing about 90's MTV in particular was just how they had great blocks of programming, like original shows that were themed around, either specific music or even like TV shows that they had. It was an interesting time. Do you remember the shows that you watched on
I
MTV,
mean,
Matt?
100%. So I mean, there's a few different ones. Obviously, the biggest one for me personally, was Beavis and Butthead. I mean, that's when I first started like watching and found out about different artists and things like that. The first time I saw War was through Beavis and Butthead, and they were just rocking the hell out. I was like, what is happening? What is this? Later, I would go on to be my first concert, but yeah, man, Beavis and Butthead. Watching a lot of those videos, some of them sucked. Specifically, in my memory, there was some of you guys might remember there was a video called Plant Man, and I don't know how they chose this video. I don't know how it came up. This was like not a great song. Clearly, it wasn't a great video, and I don't even know how they chose it. Like, I don't even know that they made fun of it. I think they just like sat there in silence most of the time and watched this terrible video. But that song I've never forgotten because of that.
Well, that's the thing with Beavis and Butthead. There was two kinds of videos that you would want. Either the great video that turns you on to a band, like I got into Dinosaur Jr. through Beavis and Butthead. It was like, wow, what is this? I bought the record the next day. But then you had these just really bad videos. Like one I was thinking of was the Grim Reaper "See You in Hell" video. Now, mind you, the riff is killer, man. That riff is awesome. But man, this band was like, if you just thought of stereotypical bad 80s metal band, that was them, but except it was like 1992. And there's Beavis and Butthead watching this video and just ripping on this poor singer, saying that he deserves a blue ribbon in a pig contest at the county fair. And yet it was just the funniest thing I had ever seen at that point in my life. And that song was one that we would play at band practice constantly because we all just remembered watching the video of Beavis and Butthead, and we had Napster in 1999 and could download Grim Reaper's "See You in Hell."
This is a quick side note. One of my favorite things from that show, as we're talking about like making fun of things, I love that fucking the kid down the street, Stuart, who like they like make fun of and shit all the time, wears a fucking Winger t-shirt. Like, that is so awesome. I'll never forget that either.
This is on topic but off topic. I remember when I was in sixth grade, my best friend had his appendix taken out, and he was in the hospital for a few days. And there was this kid, his roommate, looked, oh god, he was definitely the smelly kid in school. And I hate making fun of the smelly kid, because you know what, you almost wanted to grab the smelly kid and give him a shower and make him cool and have him hang out with you. That's what everybody should do to the smelly kid. But my friend's brother goes, did you see Kevin's roommates is Stuart from Beavis and Butt-Head? It was the funniest.
That's good. Awesome.
I like that meme that pops up from time to time with a picture of Eddie Trunk, and it says Stuart grew up. Yeah, Beavis and Butthead was definitely a very big part of my childhood. Now here's a quick sidebar. Do you remember the show that Beavis and Butthead was actually a spinoff of?
No.
It came from another show on MTV called Liquid Television.
Oh, I know what Liquid Television is. I've recently listened about this on another podcast. It was all animation based, and it was like really out there shit. Like shit that would, like, basically those people, a lot of those, maybe not the exact people, but a lot of those like concepts of making very different cartoons. Eventually Nickelodeon started going down that path, and they would make some weird shit on Nickelodeon, which is not necessarily a derivative from this, but it's kind of similar.
No, definitely. I'm pretty sure. I'm not. Don't chalk this up. I know there's going to be people listening. They're going to go like hit me up on Twitter. But I feel like Ren and Stimpy might have had something on Liquid Television.
They might have, because it was really it was really different at the time. There was I would say there's nothing like that, but those weird 90s cartoons from Nickelodeon kind of felt like similar vibes to that.
And they also had a show on a segment on there called Eon Flux, which they made into a feature length with Charlize Theron, which was terrible. But I remember being really excited about that because I loved it on Liquid Television. So I just wanted to bring up Liquid Television because Beavis and Butthead did come from that. That's where it originally debuted.
One of my favorite things too, watching MTV in general, was hearing that little noise and then seeing my good friend Kurt Loder show up with an MTV news break. I can still hear that shit in my head.
I see it right now. I just saw the little typewriter, and there was our Walter Cronkite, Kurt Loder, here to give us the big news of the day. He was here to tell us that the Lollapalooza Festival was kicking off in Cincinnati this weekend.
Yeah,
he was there. He was there for it. I remember Kurt Loder, John Norris, Tabitha Soren. They were our news anchors.
The one that sticks out to me the most is when Kurt Cobain died, and we're gonna obviously get more into that like in a little while. But that update, I still remember that in my head.
When that happened, I wasn't watching TV. I was actually on the way to a track meet, and we were listening to a classic rock station in my mom's car, and actually I remember the song it was playing. It was "Light My Fire" by The Doors, and it just stopped. It just stopped, and the DJ came on to give the news, and we were all like in shock. Like, it was weird. It was really, I remember being really weird going to a track meet that day. It was just like, wow, like things are about to get weird.
Yeah, man. That was like, I mean, at that point they were still on top of the world, you know?
Yeah. And we were gonna get something that we didn't have before, which would have been a Nirvana record with two guitarists. Like, that was gonna be cool.
Yeah, that would have been.
Actually, Bleach might have had two guitarists.
Yeah, man, it would have really like opened up a lot of their music. It would have sounded completely different, but you know, obviously that didn't happen, unfortunately. Going back to like the shows and stuff, though. What's another show that you remember from the MTV era?
Well, my favorites would have been the two shows of 120 Minutes and Alternative Nation. They were big to me. I almost felt like they were the same show, just different hosts. They were playing very similar program, but they would come on. Actually, 120 Minutes was an hour longer than Alternative Nation because it was 120 minutes long. But that was but they were on later at night. I think Alternative Nation came on at 10 o'clock, and 120 Minutes might have been about the same time, just different nights of the week. But that's where like indie and alternative music videos would debut. Like, that's where I saw Tool's Sober video for the first time. It's where I saw the Primus Mr. Crinkle video for the first time.
Just I think I remember the Tool video in my head. Is that the claymation one, or is that a different Tool song? Okay.
No, that's it. That's it. And it's all black, and there's black and white, and it's a very, very cool, trippy video. And I remember needing to learn how to play it in guitar the next day, then realizing, wow, it's actually really, really easy to play. This is cool.
Yeah, I didn't watch those shows too often. This is still a little bit like before I really started getting into music. Something I was able to watch later on. I don't know how this was early on. I only remember this like obviously getting into music a little bit later in the 90s. Headbangers Ball would come on like late at night, like I would say around midnight or something. And that show was awesome, man, because they would typically play like heavier music at that time.
It was Saturday nights at midnight.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And the host was Ricky Ratman. That's it. And very cool. For whatever reason, I went down a Ricky Ratman Wikipedia rabbit hole one night. And like, I didn't realize that dude had like this really cool like punk rock background. Like, I was actually very surprised by that. And he's like, and he's been in a lot of punk bands. He promotes punk shows out in LA currently. Like, that's what he does. And I remember like kind of being surprised by that, because like, to me, Ricky Ratman was like my gateway to heavy metal. Like, he was the guy who showed me heavy metal records. So it was like really like interesting for me to hear that he was like putting on a TSOL show in LA like a couple months before quarantine. Like, like, oh, that's cool. That's what he's doing. And then I heard him on a podcast. I hate to plug another podcast, but you should check it out. I highly recommend. He was on there and he was talking about his punk rock background. And he said that Headbangers Ball was kind of just like a gig for hire kind of deal, except that he genuinely did love heavy metal. It just wasn't his first love. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
I mean, that's awesome to me. I love punk rock and heavy metal, so I totally get that. I've started getting into like some more stuff that I didn't know about, where like the genres kind of fused together. So I'd probably be down with any kind of music he was into as well.
Yeah, it's funny though. We're bringing up metal, and we were talking about Beavis and Butt-Head. Not one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs, but when Beavis and Butt-Head watched that From Here to Eternity video, and they're just like, yeah, if you want fire, you give Iron Maiden a call. Maiden doesn't mess around.
No way, man. The other person who doesn't mess around.
Oh, go on. So
another person who doesn't
mess around, Matt.
That's got to be Mr. Carson Daly, host of TRL.
Yeah, well, it's funny. TRL was definitely. I mean, even if you did not like the music videos that were getting played on TRL, and you were this too cool for school punk rocker, you were watching TRL. It was on TV when you got home from school and you were putting it on.
Yeah, it came on at like 4 o'clock or something, like 4 in the afternoon.
Came on right around the time I'd get home from school, and I was putting it on. And usually I was just like, look how stupid this shit is. But then I'm like, I actually kind of like this song.
I mean, yeah, that would happen a lot. Like that was the first time I think I heard, maybe I heard Korn on like the radio or something like that. But I just think they remember that era, like Korn and what's his name, the other dude with the red hat, Fred Durst is I don't remember the name.
Limp Bizkit.
Limp Bizkit, sure. I saw them a couple of years ago, and I can't even remember the name of them.
Dude, funny Limp Bizkit story. I remember when they played at the Warped Tour, like right before they blew up, and like everybody was just kind of making fun of them, like this band is awful, not knowing that they were going to go on and sell like 2 billion copies of like their next record.
Oh yeah.
And they were sharing a merch booth with Social Distortion, because like Social Distortion was just nice enough to let them use their merch booth. Like they couldn't even afford a merch booth.
Jesus.
They couldn't even afford people to. And interesting side note on that, because Warped Tour was very mid-90s, so I don't feel like this is too off topic, but I remember I bought a Social Distortion t-shirt and 2 Lucy's. That is correct. Social Distortion was selling loose Marlboros.
That's freaking awesome. I would have bought one too. If I was smoking then, I probably would have been if it was that time.
But it's funny that talking about TRL, Carson Daly on the set of TRL made a cameo in one of my top 10 favorite movies, which is Josie and the Pussycats.
I've never watched that. I heard it was very good.
I've seen it no less than 1,000 times.
Oh my God.
I'll probably watch it tonight. It's on HBO Max. It always is. And then whenever I can't find anything to put on, I just go, you know what, I'm going to put on Josie again. And not only is the movie awesome, the record, the soundtrack is just incredible. It's all original music by the girl from Letters to Cleo, and it's produced by Babyface. So it's like this pop punk with great female vocals and produced by Babyface. Kind of wild. I just have to throw that out there. That the Josie and the Pussycat soundtrack is one of my all-time favorite records.
Yeah, I will say this though about Limp Bizkit. When I saw them live, I was not like they got added to this bill, so they weren't even supposed to play. I found out like maybe like a month before they just got thrown into the show, and I was like, whatever, man, I'll watch Limp Bizkit. Dude, they put on a fucking show, and I could not believe that crowd was probably more into Limp Bizkit than just about anybody else that played that day. Like even the headliner, like it was unbelievable how well that they played and how well the crowd responded. It was something else.
No, what's funny is I've talked about my the record store I worked at. I found out through another podcast, one of my old coworkers, that he would closetly listen to Limp Bizkit and would not tell any of us. And I just remember laughing when he was telling this story, because I'm like, oh yeah, we would have crucified him. That would have been it. It would have been over.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I like some of their songs. They're not my favorite band, but I definitely like some of their songs for sure.
What are your TRL memories there, bud?
I mean, mine is like, all right. So off the top of my head is like I already mentioned like Korn and Limp Bizkit, but this would have been the time that I really got into Marilyn Manson. He had that one song that was huge. I was off of Mechanical Animals, and I couldn't even tell you what the name of the huge song was. They played it a lot, and I wasn't even that crazy about it. But if you listen to that record, I think it was probably his best record that he's ever made. Other people would argue that his earlier stuff was better, which I understand. That whole thing like got me into Manson, so that was fucking awesome. Then the other two things I would say were probably like, I mean, the biggest thing was probably like the pop songs, which we're going to get into shortly, like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera. I clearly remember all of that very vividly, being that young and seeing those girls. That stood out in my mind, like, you know, like a sore thumb. So definitely remember that. Those would be like the bigger things that I can remember from that time. And then eventually you got into like, this is going on a different tangent, but getting into the 2000s, constantly seeing the goddamn boy bands on there all the time was quite annoying. I was so sick of seeing NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, 90 Degrees constantly be on that show that eventually I stopped watching it, clearly, because it just turned into like a pop station towards the end of things.
Now, if you ever just want to ruin somebody's day, just go up to them and sing the just go, quit playing games with my heart. And it's over. It'll be in their head for the entire day. So there's my gift to all of you. I'm going to torture you with that, and now you can pass it on.
I'm not judging anybody for what they listen to. I'm not trying to anyways. But man, like, even if those songs were popular and catchy, I get that. But they played the hell out of them to the point where it was like, I don't want to hear this anymore. Please stop. Please stop.
No, I know for sure. Because it was TRL, Total Request Live, and it just seems like everybody was requesting the same songs, apparently.
That was a problem. Like, they would stay in the top, they would play the top 10 songs, and every day it would be like almost the same 10 songs, like for a long time, until a new pop song came out.
But I do remember with that show, it being very weird that I would like turn on MTV after school and like seeing like Social Distortion on daytime MTV. I'd be like, what? Like, what's going on here?
Face was on TRL at one point. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Crazy.
Like, the Blind video would come on. The Blind video and Social Distortion. It would be the
Shoot the Moon. It was when Face to Face put out Shoot the Moon. That was their big thing at that time.
I remember the Blind video when I was a freshman in high school, seeing that on TRL. I remember seeing that when the self-titled record came out, and around that time, MTV was really pushing Social Distortion. I Was Wrong and When the Angels Sing, which was weird to me because I'm like, wow, Social Distortion's getting like mainstream, like daytime MTV pop here, and it's kind of strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that they did try to cover some of that music, but like what you were saying earlier with TRL, eventually it just got killed by pop music, and like the same shit constantly got played on there, and then people stopped watching it.